A desperate appeal: help the 5 million homeless and starving after the Asian tsunami disaster. Good morning, this is the News Hour on GMTV.
Yes, it's 6 o'clock on Thursday, the 30th of December.
More than 82,000 dead and the number still rising. That's the grim picture this morning, 5 days after the disaster in the Indian Ocean. 1 in 4 people in the Indonesian province of Banda Aceh are thought to have been killed. That could be as many as 80,000 in that one area alone.
Yes, the United Nations estimates that around 5 million people are now homeless, without food, water and basic sanitation. Disease is threatening. Rachel Harrison reports.
As coastline searches continue, thousands more bodies are discovered. Towns that once had 10,000 people living there now have just a handful. Whole areas have literally been wiped off the map. More than half of those who've died have come from Indonesia. In Aceh, 1 in 4 people have been killed. Victims are being buried without ceremony or care. Body bags and coffins are in short supply. This was supposed to be a wedding video. The celebrations cut short as the family battled to stay above the rising waterline. 5 days on, the remote Andaman Islands have only just been reached. Homes have been replaced by rubble. Families don't have time to mourn. For those lucky enough to be spared, survival is now their greatest challenge. 5 million now are without basic essentials, a roof over their heads, food and water. There is no end in sight. As each hour passes, the news worsens and the death toll grows ever higher. Aid is on its way, but it's slow. The agencies just can't cope with the geographic scale and the level of demand. The UN says it would still take at least another 2 to 3 days to begin to respond properly. This is not a short-term relief programme. Livelihoods have been lost. It will take years and billions of pounds to rebuild the 11 countries affected.
Well, if you'd like to donate money to the UK emergency appeal, the number you should call is 0870 60 60 900, 0870 60 60 900, and we'll have more details on that for you in about 15 minutes.
At least 26 Britons are confirmed dead so far, but Thailand says it believes 43 have been killed at its beach resorts. Officials there say 6,000 more people are still missing. Now, Richard Gaisford is in Phuket. He joins us on the line now. Richard, what's the scene this morning?
Well, the scene is basically those with family and friends still missing are putting posters and pictures of those people up in the local town, Phuket town, Andrew. There's boards full of pictures of people desperate for some sort of information as to what may have happened to their friends or relatives. And those people also have the grim task of going to the mortuaries and the halls where the dead are being laid out. And they are now searching through those dead bodies, just looking to see whether or not they recognize a face or an item of clothing or something which may lead them to some sort of conclusion as to what has happened to those people who are missing. Today we're being told that in Thailand alone 6,000 people are missing, and it's thought that half of those are foreigners. And if we look along the coast of Khao Lak, it's a resort popular with Scandinavians and Germans and also with British. Already they've recovered 1,800 bodies there, and they're thinking that 3,000 people may have died in that one resort alone. So the figures are rising all the time. And amongst those missing, there's just one character that does stand out from the crowd at the moment, purely because of the campaign to find him. He's a chap called Piers Simon, 33, and his brother Luke has been putting pictures of him up all over the place, and we'll talk to him a little later about his fight to find his brother.
And Richard, the regeneration process has to start at some point, the rebuilding, I suppose. We understand some people are actually heading back to the beaches.
It's quite amazing. Amongst all this death and devastation, the Thai businesses are very keen to get back on their feet. Bars that would appear to have been completely destroyed just a matter of days ago are now operating by candlelight. And you do have holidaymakers, and especially British holidaymakers, down on the beaches trying to get something out of their holiday. Now, when they're asked, why are you here? Do you not think it's slightly, distasteful to be here? They say, well, no, it's happened. The Thais want us to stay. They want to keep their businesses going. We don't want to go home. We can't go home. We can't get a flight. We don't want to fight our way through the airports. We're going to stay and see out the rest of our holiday.
OK, Richard, for the moment, thank you very much indeed.
Well, let's take a look now at other stories making the news today. Here's Lucy.
Thank you. Good morning. 60 police officers are hunting for the killer of pregnant teenager Amy Williams, who was found dead on Boxing Day. They're appealing to the public to help find her missing clothes. West Mercia's police chief has described her murder as despicable. Havovi Todd reports.
Amy's body was discovered in this churchyard in Shropshire. She was just 14 years old and heavily pregnant before she was strangled to death. The icy weather on Boxing Day night has made pinpointing the actual time of her murder difficult, but she was last seen alive around 9 p.m. that evening after leaving a party at her uncle's house.
For her to be killed in this manner is a shocking, despicable act. West Mercia Police are determined to trace whoever is responsible, and again we're appealing for the help of the public in this matter.
They're asking for help to trace Amy's last known movements and to find her missing clothes, a pink tracksuit, a white t-shirt and trainers. Floral tributes beside the murder scene reveal the shock and horror felt at the brutal killing of such a vulnerable young girl. Detectives are hoping this will persuade anyone who knows her murderer to come forward.
A 12-year-old boy charged with raping a teacher at his school is due to appear at South Durham Magistrates Court today. The woman claims she was raped by the boy while providing personal tuition. He's then alleged to have taken her car, which was later found abandoned in Gateshead. British public life remains locked in the past, with most top jobs still filled by men, according to a damning new report. The Equal Opportunities Commission says women's career chances are still being blighted by prejudice, almost 30 years after the Sex Discrimination Act became law. Just 1% more women were appointed to senior jobs in the police, business and judiciary in the past year. Demand for home loans is at its lowest for almost 4 years, according to the British Bankers Association. The number of mortgages approved by its members fell by 20% in November. That's the lowest number of sales since January 2001. Experts predict the market won't pick up until the end of next year. Now, she's already got 2 gold medals to her name, but Olympic heroine Kelly Holmes is set to become a Dame in the New Year honours list. Her honour, to be announced tomorrow, will follow the MBE she was awarded for services in the British Army. She'll be the second athlete to receive the title. I'm back at 6:30. Now over to Claire and the weather.
Hello, good morning. Mild for a time, windy and wet across more northern areas. A dry start further south, as you can see, perhaps the cloud breaking from time to time to allow a little bit of sunshine. This area of rain and also wind will sink its way southwards down towards Northern Ireland, southern Scotland and eventually northern areas of England. To the north, turning a little bit fresher, lighter breeze, a little bit of sunshine and temperatures, well, on the mild side, up to perhaps 15 Celsius in the south. Now it's back to Jackie and Andrew.
Thank you very much indeed. We're just getting reports coming in from southeast India. They have issued a tsunami alert for southeast India and telling people to get away from coastal areas. So a tsunami alert in southeast India. So, of course, as we get more of that, we'll bring that to you.
Bit of a worry.
Newspapers this morning. Let's have a look at the Independent. How can you help the victims of the tsunami? They're suggesting that this would be a good way to do it for victims of the tsunami. This goes to the Disaster Emergency Committee, that money straight away. In the Times this morning, as the death toll climbs to 100,000, one man cremates his wife by a faraway beach, and a sort of harrowing photo there. The World launches Mercy mission as tsunami toll rises towards 100,000 in the Daily Telegraph, talking about the world's biggest ever relief effort. And The Guardian poses the question, will the world walk away?
Very distressing stories all over the tabloids. This one on the front of the Sun, My Lost Family, it says. This is about a British lady called Sharon Howard who's lost her 2 little boys and her boyfriend just hours after she got engaged. It's dreadful. On the Express, we've got 120,000 now is the predicted number of dead, and of course that could still rise. It seems to be rising all the time. On the Mirror, £15 million of aid is not enough. Another criticism of the government, saying we're just not giving enough to the disaster aid fund. And on the Daily Mail, just this picture of this beautiful little child. For pity's sake, help her, and urging people to give as much as they can to the aid operation.
Almost 6:10. Let's take a break from that news for a moment and talk about sport. And the burning question after Arsenal's win over Newcastle United last night, is Graham Souness about to become the Premiership's next manager to be sacked? Joining me, former England and Arsenal star Kenny Sampson. Morning to you.
Good morning.
A 1-0 defeat at the hands of the Gunners is not bad for Newcastle, but it just comes... I mean, it was a fine performance, wasn't it? It was a good match.
I thought Newcastle actually played a lot better in the second half than they did in the first half and possibly deserved something out of it. Obviously, Arsenal went on to win 1-0, and I think Graham Souness was very angry about a lot of time wasting by the Arsenal team, but that's all part of the game. But, you know, success, football clubs want success straight away.
Did you think about being a manager going into it after your record? They would, you know...
Not really. I want to try and keep me grey hair. I've got 5 grandkids I have to look after sometimes.
Is that right, Kenny?
5 grandkids, yes. And I think being a manager is such a difficult job now. The expectations, you've got to be almost like Mourinho's doing at Chelsea, successful straight away, and you've got to say he's done a marvellous job, but I think Graham will be under a little bit of pressure because they're a big club.
Yeah, they certainly are. So we'll see what happens.
I think that's the picture I was just talking about.
Handball?
Yeah, no, he's saying wasting time as well. I think he hinted quite a couple of times. I think he took the ball off Pat Rice at one stage, and he's not a happy manager, but as I say, expectations at a big club like Newcastle, and so he will be under pressure in the new year.
It was a great strike from Patrick Vieira,
It was
wasn't
a fantastic strike.
It's so unexpected. I mean, this is where the Premiership has changed so much, the sheer athleticism
well,
of
I
some
think
of the
what
work.
it is, when you look at the game, I mean, in the 93rd minute, they're still playing at 100 mile an hour, and it's a wonderful strike. He got a little deflection. There's a little bit of luck involved. I think it first hit Titus Bramble, and then it's taken a little deflection off Janus.
But to beat Shea Given from there, you have to strike the ball well.
I think what happened, because of the deflection, and I think what's happened, he's going where he thinks the ball is going to actually be hit, and the little deflection's taken it slightly to his right, and he had no chance.
Let's just talk about, I mean, we've got Wayne Rooney under quite a lot of pressure at the moment, and Alex Ferguson is saying basically to the FA and everyone else that will listen, give the lad a break. He's mine, for one thing. Do big decisions favour the bigger clubs as well? Last night, I thought Arsenal did get away with it. It pains me to say it.
Yeah, I think sometimes when the bigger clubs, I think you do get the rub of the green sometimes. I think it happens in all sport. If you're very good at something, you get away with things. And I think Wayne Rooney, violent conduct, I think Sir Alex is right. And it pains me to say that, but I think Alex is right. Violent conduct. I think he's put his hand on his face. If that's violent conduct, you want to try going to the streets on a Friday and a Saturday night.
Well, no, I mean, I take the point, but we look to sport to lead in some ways as well.
You can't raise your hand. He knows he's wrong, and he's got to learn. Wayne Rooney's a very, very young lad. He's earned a lot of money, and he does lose his temper, and that's got to be sorted out.
Top of the table then, Chelsea have played 49 points. They've got a 5-point lead over Arsenal now, and grinding away and getting 1-0 away victories, which is what all the top teams seem to be doing. OK, Everton lost at the weekend, but the top 3, this is going to be a great run-in.
I think it's going to be fantastic. I think there's a massive game on the 1st of January. Chelsea have to go to Liverpool.
You think
could be a big difference, and it could change the look of that league if Manchester United and Arsenal get their wins.
Who are Arsenal playing?
Arsenal playing Charlton.
Arsenal playing who
away.
They
like playing against us. They do raise their game when they play Arsenal.
Of course they do. That's the trouble. Is the top 3 of what everyone aims at. Have you been watching the cricket, by the way, as well? Talking about raising the game.
Fantastic, the cricket. Absolutely marvellous.
England still trying to get 9 wickets and around about 360 runs for the victory for South Africa. Thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, more on that breaking news story this morning. Authorities in India have issued a tsunami alert for Tamil Nadu state in the country's southeast. It's an area which bore the brunt of the Boxing Day tidal waves. Experts believe aftershocks which were felt this morning may trigger more high waves, and of course we will have more on that for you as we get it. Now, back here, more Britons are arriving home, bringing with them some just extraordinary tales of survival. We can go now to Abingdon to join Simon Vine and Paul Hogg, who are just back from Phuket in Thailand. Now, good morning to you both. Very, very good to see you looking so well and safe this morning. I believe you were in your hotel on Boxing Day morning when you heard screaming outside. Tell us what happened next.
Morning to you, Jackie. Yeah, as you said, just heard some screaming. I got up, I was in bed, and I went to the door and saw water gushing down the path from the beach. Initially, I thought it was just a flood from the heavy rain the night before, but then within seconds I realised it was far more serious. Within seconds, the water was up around the knees.
Yeah, I was going to say, it went up to about 7 feet high in about a minute or something, I believe.
Yeah, well, the flood came in a bit to about knee deep, and then started to drop down a bit, and then a few seconds later, it was up 7 feet deep, as you said.
So you all managed to get onto the roof, and what happened then? I believe you saw lots of people being hurt, and it must have been just horrendous for you.
Well, there was no staff in the hotel. They'd all gone, so it was all the holidaymakers that were helping one another out, and we were trying to get as many people to the roof of the hotel as quickly as possible. People were trapped in their rooms for some reason. I don't know if it was just panic or had somehow been locked in, but we had to kick doors open and let people out because we didn't know how high the water was going to rise. There was screaming, shouting, there was injured bodies in the hotel, cars floating around, jet skis had blown in from the beach and boats. You know, the place was in a horrific mess.
I'm sure it was. And Paul, the most horrendous thing really out there was that you almost instantly saw people taking advantage of the disaster, trying to profit from it.
Well, basically what it was, we didn't really sort of pay any attention to that at first, but as things were floating by, people were chasing after them and basically taking whatever they could for themselves, really.
And how are you both now? I mean, it must be very difficult to get over something like that. I know it's only been a few days. How are you both feeling now?
Well, there was 8 of us, and we've all reacted to it in a different way. For me, it's helped to talk about it, and you know, the more I talk about it, the easier it becomes, and possibly, you know, is helping me get over it. I know a lot of my friends have turned their phones off. They can't talk about it. They can't discuss what we went through. It's too emotional for them, and we reacted in. I suppose we all reacted in different ways.
That's very understandable. How did you manage to get home?
Oh, that was that night. We had to stay. The hardest part was staying there. You know, we couldn't get out of the town, so we had to stay there for the night. And the following morning, we were up at. You know, nobody slept. Obviously, we sought refuge 13 floors high in a derelict building. And then in the morning, you know, at sunrise, we were all up. We were waiting on the streets. We went back to the hotels, which had been burgled in the night. The locals had been in, ransacked the rooms and taken a lot of the stuff. But we managed to rescue things like I couldn't find my passport, but I managed to find my tickets, and a lot of my goods had been stolen from one of the rooms that we put all our stuff in that we managed to save. Although that's not relevant. And then we got taxis back to the airport. But even the taxi drivers, you know, the prices had gone up, you know, tenfold because they knew you were so desperate to get out.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? Well, it's very, very good to see you both back, and I hope you do eventually get over it. Very traumatic for you, and thanks very much for joining us this morning. Thank you.
Well, one of the biggest aid operations in world history is now underway to get much-needed help to the areas affected by the catastrophe. Last night, the Disasters Emergency Committee launched this appeal from Sir Trevor MacDonald.
These extraordinary images have touched and shocked us all over the past few days. Sights and sounds of probably the worst natural disaster we've ever seen. Tens of thousands of people have died. Ordinary people's lives, like ours, have been ripped apart. Now urgent help is needed from us all. Have a look at those pictures and imagine that happening to a village or a part of this country, and how desolate we will be, how desperate we could be, and how much we'll need the help from outside. So I think, you know, one always says this when there are natural disasters in parts of the world, but if ever there was a need, I think this is the time.
Well, joining us now, Brendan Gormley, the Chief Executive of the Disasters Emergency Committee. Brendan, good morning to you.
Morning.
I know you've just heard this news as well, but a tsunami warning for the whole of southeast India along the coast. What's your first impressions of that?
Well, we're already reeling from the last few days. I just can't bear the thought that people are going to be put at risk again. Perhaps the good thing is that, as you say, there has been a warning, and maybe people, if it is threatening, will this time have the chance to go that half a mile up the hill.
I didn't think they had a tsunami warning system in
They do. It works better on the Pacific side, where they happen more often. India Ocean, it happens so rarely that probably both the kit and the system is a bit rusty, to be honest.
The Disasters Emergency Committee, presumably you're responsible for collecting and distributing.
That's our skill. Our skill is to offer the British public a simple way to give, knowing that it's going to go to the 12 leading UK charities who come together. When you've got something as big as this, we have to work together, don't we? And that's our job. We're the interface between those people who will do the work on the ground and the British public.
And are you happy with the government so far, the way you're dealing with them?
They have always been supportive of us. Clearly, this scale, we need more from everybody, and I think the British public are showing the way, and I'm sure the government will do as much as it can do.
It's incredible, isn't it, how Sudan is now no longer on the news pages despite Band Aid and other trouble areas, even Iraq. You have to go to page 7 and 8 before we see a bomb blast killing 25 people. But I think we need to illustrate what people's money can actually buy them if they contribute to this. So you have a selection of...
Well, I do, because some of your colleagues have helped me. I mean, £10 get you the plastic sheeting to make one of those little shelters, so at least...
And that's there, isn't it?
And then a mosquito net, which is absolutely crucial in this hot, humid conditions. Mosquitoes kill, £27. But don't forget, this is bought here in London. With cash donated, we can buy locally, make it go even further.
OK.
Absolutely crucial, little chlorine tablets, £7 for 1,000, and actually for £40 we can keep 100 families for a week with clean water. Just a few more of those. So that's a lovely one. What about just base? Everybody's lost everything, swept away. We have ready-made up kitchen kits. Those can go out for about £9. And what we discovered in Sudan, which we did a major appeal. For about £35, you can feed a family for a week. And so far, we find probably an average donation from families in the UK is £40. So look how far, look what they're able to do.
Are you able to maintain any sense of optimism or forward thinking at this point? Have you ever seen anything on this scale before?
I haven't, to be honest. But you have to be an optimist. I wouldn't get out of bed if I didn't think that we could do something. And the lovely thing is that the UK charities, the Oxfams of this world, Christian Aid, they've got partners, they've got staff in all those countries. So they're already at work.
Yeah.
It's just the sheer geographical scale that is a bit daunting.
Brendan, good luck.
Not at all, thanks for your help.
You can make a donation to help by calling the Disaster Appeal telephone number. That's 0870 60 60 900, 0870 60 60 900.
And you can also make a donation in person at any of the high street banks and the post office, as well as by post. You can see our website, of course, for more details. That's gm.tv. We'll take a break now, back in just a moment.
His political aspirations are well documented.
We'll laugh on the other side of their faces.
But who was the real Adolf Hitler?
Uncle Adolf doesn't like women to be too intelligent.
All German women should be married.
His loves.
Heil Hitler!
Heil Hitler!
And the influence they had on his private life.
We only love once.
Ken Stott portrays this historical figure in a remarkable tale.
I have only loved once.
An ITV1 drama premiere, Uncle Adolf, Monday at 9.
Let's get ready to rumble. Two teams from the general public go head-to-head with Wild Man Nigel Marvin.
Let's have it.
To be crowned King of the Jungle.
Ignore the Crocs. They're really quite nice.
For the winners, it's £70,000. For the losers, it's Scream If You Want to Get Off. Saturday, ITV1.
Welcome back, it's 6:24. Now take a look at this painting. It's clearly the work of an accomplished and talented artist, and of course it would be enough of a challenge for someone who could see perfectly, but this, believe it or not, was actually painted by a man who's very nearly blind. The artist is Paul Jordan, who joins us now with his wife Julia and son James. I think James is having his breakfast there this morning. Good morning to you all. Thank you very much for coming in. Now, Paul, first of all, I mean, it's quite mind-boggling that you obviously haven't got very much eyesight and are able to paint like that.
That's right.
But you weren't always blind, were you?
No,
Tell me what happened.
Basically, my career has been a graphic artist for nearly 14 years. I had started having eyesight trouble, and I eventually ended up in hospital in Birmingham, having tests and things, and it went on from there really. And unfortunately, I've been diagnosed with muscular dystrophy, which is a progressive muscle disease, which has been diagnosed and unfortunately is affecting the muscles in the whole of my body, but also it's obviously affected my eyes.
And how on earth do you manage to paint, though? I mean, people will find it amazing. Presumably it's from memory.
Memory, very strong imagination, which obviously always been my background with my job. You have to have a good imagination and a lot of creativity with being in design.
And how long does it take you to do one of these paintings?
The Star Wars painting, which obviously was just a painting which I wanted to do, was nothing...
So you're a Star Wars fan, obviously.
Big Star Wars fan. It's taken nearly 2 years to paint.
Wow.
Normally it would have probably taken about 2 or 3 weeks at the most, but yeah, it took nearly 2 years.
It's extraordinary. Julia, Paul was diagnosed with this condition when you were pregnant with James. It must have been a very tough time for you.
Well, yes, it was. He was diagnosed a week before we found out I was pregnant, so we'd kind of got that to deal with, and it was just so worrying, basically because we didn't know how it was going to affect Paul, how bad it was going to get, what sort of condition he's going to end up in. It was just a case of feeling helpless, but we pulled together and we got through it.
You must be extremely proud of the way he's still able to work.
Oh, extremely proud. I just can't believe what he's achieved. It's unbelievable, but yes, very proud indeed.
Now, Paul, the money, you're actually selling some of your Star Wars paintings now.
Yes.
But the money is going to charity?
It's going to the muscular dystrophy campaign here in the UK. What I'm doing now is obviously I've set myself up a charity called Muscular Art Donations, and from that I obviously collect money from doing paintings, which obviously I've been lucky enough to have my Star Wars painting, which I completed and licensed by Lucasfilm Limited, who obviously are the franchise for Star Wars.
Yeah,
and it's gone from there really, and now I'm being lucky enough to have different art donated from other artists here in the UK and overseas in the US.
Fantastic.
Which all the proceeds are going back in 12 months' time to the muscular dystrophy campaign in London.
Very worthy work. Now, I mean, you obviously still have problems. You have increasing problems from your condition, don't you?
Unfortunately, yes. I'm having swallowing problems, which is affecting me eating. I'm having cramps and a lot of muscle pain in my arms and my legs. I've had breathing problems, actually from my teens, which unfortunately at the time nobody understood why, but obviously now I've been diagnosed through the team up in Newcastle upon Tyne, Professor Turnbull and their team. Obviously, it now makes a lot more sense what's going on with my health.
And does the art help you to get through every day? It must be a great comfort
Yes.
to you to be able to do things like that.
Very much so. It's just an achievement. I mean, it's an achievement I didn't think I'd be able to do. It's given me a sense of gratitude for myself, really, and I've overcome a lot of obstacles with what's happened, and now obviously it's become a charity for myself, and obviously bringing awareness for muscular dystrophy campaign and muscular dystrophy as a whole, because it's a killing disease. Unfortunately, it's not a nice thing to talk about, obviously. I mean,
no, but you're doing a great job in highlighting it and raising money for it. And thank you very much for joining us this morning. James has been wonderful. What a good little boy. He must be a great comfort as well. So sweet. Thank you very much indeed.
Very much.
And if you like Paul's work, who wouldn't, and you'd like to find out more about the Muscular Art Donations charity, you will find details on our website, gm.tv.
Almost 6:30 this morning. If you're just joining us, authorities in India have issued a tsunami warning along the country's southeast coast. So a tsunami warning along the country's southeast coast, which is a huge area. More on that in a moment. But first, the weather picture closer to home. Here's Claire.
GMTV weather, sponsored by Tops Tiles, brightening homes, whatever the weather.
Hello, good morning. Now, wind and rain gradually sinking its way southwards, remaining mild, at least for the time being, although Sunday we're going to get an Arctic blast of cold air and, in fact, some wintry showers returning to milder air after that. Now, this morning, the satellite picture's not picking up the low cloud, but at least it's dry across England and Wales, much of Ireland as well as southern areas of Scotland. As we head through the cloud and head northwards, there's a little bit of drizzle across northwest Wales, but across the far north of Scotland, that's where we are seeing some heavy bursts of rain during this morning. This heavy rain is it's likely to move its way southwards through the next few hours, reaching southern Scotland and northern England later on. So this is the rain here. To the south, there is a lot of cloud. The cloud could break up from time to time, allowing perhaps a little bit of sunshine. Associated with this rain, though, is some very strong winds. As the rain sinks its way south, though, turning a little bit calmer in the north, a lighter breeze, and you should see some sunshine. This rain will continue to be heavy until it sinks its way across to more southern areas as we head through this evening and overnight. And temperatures on the mild side, that's particularly across more southern areas, 15 Celsius, 59 degrees Fahrenheit, turning a little bit fresher across the far north, and that's where we could see problems tomorrow with fog as well as frost. In fact, some icy stretches on untreated roads across Scotland, perhaps even northern England, and further south across Northern Ireland. We hang on to the mild conditions as well as the cloud and the rain across more southern areas, and those fog patches could actually be dense, particularly across more northern areas because of the lighter breeze. As we head into New Year's Eve the afternoon, well, the rain clears off the scene. We should see some sunshine and then see some rain moving in across the far northwest. So what's happening New Year's Eve? If you are out and about, there shouldn't be any problems on the roads. There will be some rain across the far north and west, some chilly winds here, turning colder on Sunday, and in the south it's mostly dry and fairly mild. Here's your summary. Find out what our weather's up to for the next 5 days on our website gm.tv.
More now on the earthquake disaster, of course, and authorities in southeast India have just issued a new tsunami alert for all areas affected by the tidal waves on Boxing Day, especially Tamil Nadu state. A lot of information coming in on that, and as we get it, we'll bring it to you. Of course, over 82,000 people have been confirmed dead already. That number is rising, so that is the rather grim picture this morning, 5 days after the disaster in the Indian Ocean. 26 Britons are now confirmed dead. Thailand says at least 43 have been killed at its resorts. Now, in Phuket, Richard Gaisford is there. And I just wonder, Richard, if you've heard anything at all about that breaking news about the tsunami alert.
No, that's certainly news to us, Andrew. In fact, I heard it from the office first, so nothing from the Thai authorities. We've had a look out to the horizon, just in a little trepidation, but nothing here. And obviously, we will keep our eyes open and ears open for any information that we can get on that. The news that has come from the Thai authorities this morning is that they are thinking that 6,000 people are still missing in Thailand, half of those foreigners, so around 3,000 foreigners still missing. The news is not great, specifically from one island, Khao Lak, where 1,800 bodies have so far been recovered, and they think 3,000 people may have died, and that is a resort that is very popular with Europeans. So we think that figure of British dead is likely to go up, sadly. Amongst those missing is this chap here, Piers Simon, 33 years old. Now, I was hoping to speak to his brother Luke just now. I spent the morning with him, but Luke's just had a telephone call from a friend who has had the very grim task of going through the local morgues trying to identify bodies, and he's just rung Luke just a few minutes ago to say that he thinks he may have found someone that looks very much like his brother. So at the moment they're going through dental records and identifying features. It is a grim task, and one that his brother is attempting here with the help of a friend. A very difficult time for him indeed. And throughout this island and islands and resorts along the coast of Thailand, there are boards where pictures like that are being put up so people can try and have some hope. Family and friends who are missing relatives are putting these pictures up in the resort towns, hoping that someone may have seen them and someone may have some information about the loved ones that they would dearly like to see back again. And amongst all of this death and destruction and the missing people and the sad news, believe it or not, people are still holidaying. It seems strange, but on the beach behind me, people are still taking in the sun, going in the sea, and amongst them a number of Britons, and I caught up with them yesterday. Slowly, they're coming back to the beach that just a few days ago they ran for their lives from. Amongst the visitors today, this British family, keen to help their 8-year-old daughter banish the thoughts and fears she's gained after watching the tidal wave sweep in.
There was big waves and there was coming and people was very frightened and people were screaming and they was very scared.
My little girl, she's panicked. She didn't want to come near the sea. This is the first time we've been back today since it all happened, and we've brought her down and she's okay, yeah. Despite reminders all around, it hasn't put the family off staying.
It doesn't put me off being here now, and it doesn't put me off coming back.
Now, these men too are keen to stay on. They've spent the day on the beach, talking about what's happened, and why they don't want to go home.
No, I don't want to go back. Come out here 4 weeks, I'm going to stay out here.
It's my holiday. I want to be here. I know it's a big disaster, but I'm staying.
Yeah, you do think about it. Feel sorry for everyone who's died. Women, children, everyone.
Richard, we'll be back to you later on. Thank you very much.
Well, the United Nations estimates that 5 million people around the Indian Ocean are now homeless and without food, water and basic sanitation. It's trying to raise £130 million in aid, with the threat of disease increasing every hour. Rachel Harrison has the latest.
As coastline searches continue, thousands more bodies are discovered. Towns that once had 10,000 people living there now have just a handful. Whole areas have literally been wiped off the map. More than half of those who've died have come from Indonesia. In Aceh, 1 in 4 people have been killed. Victims are being buried without ceremony or care. Body bags and coffins are in short supply. This was supposed to be a wedding video. The celebrations cut short as the family battled to stay above the rising waterline. 5 days on, the remote Andaman Islands have only just been reached. Homes have been replaced by rubble. Families don't have time to mourn. For those lucky enough to be spared, survival is now their greatest challenge. 5 million now are without basic essentials, a roof over their heads, food and water. There is no end in sight. As each hour passes, the news worsens and the death toll grows ever higher. Aid is on its way, but it's slow. The agencies just can't cope with the geographic scale and the level of demand. The UN says it will still take at least another 2 to 3 days to begin to respond properly. This is not a short-term relief programme. Livelihoods have been lost. It will take years and billions of pounds to rebuild the 11 countries affected.
Well, ITV News correspondent Dan Rivers is in Banda Aceh in Sumatra. Speaking earlier, he said entire areas which are out of reach from the rescue effort appear to have been wiped out by the waves.
The devastation is absolutely incredible. There are entire districts which have been completely razed to the ground. He estimates that only about 30% of the town is left standing. You can see the devastation in the pictures we've got here. Elsewhere, as we move up the coast, the devastation becomes even worse, if that's possible. The tidal wave went several hundred metres inland. In some places, it went even 1.5 kilometres inland. You can see some of the airstrips with huge cracks in the tarmac outside the city. But then the worst devastation seems to be in a place called Chalang, where there appears to be just one building left standing. And this is a town of some 12 to 13,000 people. There's a microwave station with a tower and a few buildings around it. That is basically all that is left, and one can only imagine the awful, traumatic scenes there. They've been left there now for 4.5 days without any rescuers at all, without any outside help, without any aid, food or water. One can only assume that a massive proportion of the people there have been killed by the impact of this tsunami, and that an even more people after that will succumb to illness, to starvation, to lack of water. So although the picture in Banda Aceh, where we are at the moment, is incredibly bad, I think the true epicenter, the true ground zero, if I can use that term, is further down the coast, where entire towns have been completely leveled. They are simply not there anymore. It's as if a nuclear bomb has been exploded, detonated on the coast, and has just taken out every single building in the area.
A graphic account of the scene at Banda Aceh, one of the worst affected areas in Indonesia, from Dan Rivers there.
Now let's go over to the news desk now and get the rest of today's news with Lucy McDonald.
Good morning. Detectives investigating the murder of pregnant teenager Amy Williams are appealing for help to find her missing clothes. Her body was discovered in a churchyard in Shropshire on Monday morning. She was last seen around 9 o'clock on Boxing Day evening after leaving her uncle's Christmas party. British public life remains locked in the past, with most top jobs still filled by men, according to a damning new report. The Equal Opportunities Commission says women's career chances are still being blighted by prejudice, almost 30 years after the Sex Discrimination Act became law. Just 1% more women were appointed to senior jobs in the police, business and judiciary in the past year. Demand for home loans is at its lowest for almost 4 years, according to the British Bankers Association. The number of mortgages approved by its members fell by 20% in November. That's the lowest number of sales since January 2001. Experts predict the market won't pick up until the end of next year. She already has 2 gold medals to her name. Now Olympic heroine Kenny Holmes is set to become a dame in the New Year honours list. Her honour, to be announced tomorrow, will follow the MBE she was awarded for services in the British Army. She'll be the 2nd athlete to receive the title. It's 6:39. Here's what's happening where you are.
Following the murder of a man in Speke. 45-year-old Joseph Pilo was shot on his doorstep in Speke. He managed to walk to a police station but later died at Wiston Hospital. Detectives are keen to trace a man seen talking to Mr Pilo outside his house on Little Heath Road at around 11:30 on Tuesday night. It's the 10th fatal shooting on Merseyside this year. 5 tonnes of fireworks are being loaded onto the roof of Liverpool's Metropolitan Catholic Cathedral today. A gigantic firework display will be held on New Year's Eve to mark the end of the Capital of Culture themed year of Faith in One City. A 300-foot winch will be used to lift them to the top of the cathedral. The 20-minute display will begin at 5:30 tomorrow. I'll be back with more news at 7:05. For now, though, let's take a look at today's weather.
Brighten up your winter with a fresh smell of summer.
Overcast this morning with the cloud shrouding the Pennines in fog and some patchy drizzle. This afternoon will be heavy rain and it'll spread into Lancashire this afternoon with gusty south winds and highs of 13 Celsius.
It's just gone 20 to 7 this morning. Now, Sri Lanka is, of course, one of the countries worst hit by the Boxing Day tsunami. This morning, the death toll there alone stands at over 22,000 people. Let's go to Chester now, and the McCulloch family, who were in the country's southwest, one of the worst hit areas. Can I just ask you where exactly you were both staying?
We were staying in Kogala Beach, which is about 15 kilometres east of Galle.
And what was your experience on the day, John?
Well, it was very fortunate for us that we managed for the first time in the 4 days that we were there to get down to breakfast. And when I say down to breakfast, breakfast was on the first floor. So we left our ground floor room on the beach, and we'd only been in the breakfast room about 5 minutes when the tsunami started to come in. And because we were very fortunate to be on the high ground, we were largely, we escaped the sort of full impact of the waves.
And there were sort of 3 particular waves, wasn't there? There were 3 sort of moments, decisive moments, where it got worse each time. Is that the way you saw it?
That's right, yes. It wasn't a huge tidal wave coming in. It was, first of all, surprise amongst the staff of the hotel in the dining room and the other guests that the sea was coming past where it normally stopped and right across the swimming pool in a second surge. And then it got stronger and went straight into the hotel and flooded the ground floor. And then a much bigger one seemed to smack against the walls of the dining room and up against the windows. And at that point, people started to panic and make their way out of the dining room, down the stairs and through what was a flowing river, if you like, the corridor, and out to higher ground, wade through the water and higher ground on the roadside.
And I understand, Hazel, that the staff were very helpful to you. Did you immediately understand the gravity of the situation that you were in?
Not at the time. I mean, I think we immediately knew that something had happened. I mean, I instinctively knew that it was a tsunami or some kind of sea surge, and at that point, you know, knew that it must have been an earthquake close by, but we didn't realise how close. And it was only when we actually were evacuated to Colombo and we started seeing the news reports that we really then realised the enormity of the situation and the devastation within the area.
And your feelings now, John and Hazel, as you look at the news footage over the last few days?
Well, we feel exceptionally lucky, and our feelings, of course, go out to those who were less lucky than we were, and the families and friends of those who are lost or missing. And we feel a great gratitude to the staff of the hotel in Sri Lanka who, having lost their livelihoods, stayed with us for 36 hours, gave us supplies that they could have used after we had gone, and they knew we were leaving, but they stayed with us for 36 hours and showed a lot of dignity, and we felt very humbled by it. John, Hazel, it's quite humbling to talk to you. I'm glad you made it through. Welcome home. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Well, back here, the Sri Lankan community are rallying to help those affected. Jonathan Swain is at a Buddhist temple in Croydon for us this morning. Good morning, Jonathan. What exactly is going on there?
Well, it's morning prayer here at the Buddhist temple in Croydon, where they're praying for the families and for their friends back at home, also for the missing and for their loved ones who have been perhaps caught up in this tragedy. Just about everybody here has been affected in some personal way by the tragedy that happened in Sri Lanka. The current death toll stands at 22,799, just a figure which is incomprehensible. Well, they're determined here to also help with the relief efforts. They're collecting clothes and blankets and sheets for the people in the devastated south of the country. This is what they've managed to collect in just one day. They've also raised £4,000. They're hoping to raise £10,000 to help the relief effort back at home. Well, joining me this morning is Ranjit. Ranjit, sorry to interrupt your prayer there. This tragedy has particularly hit you, hasn't it?
Yes, I lost my sister on this tragedy. She was home at the time with her son and the children. They were all sleeping upstairs, so they were okay, managed to survive. But my sister's died in this tragedy accident, and we managed to get hold her body only yesterday and done the burial at the same time because there are so many thousands of people there lying on the hospital mortuary. So it's very, very sad. Anyway, we're trying to do whatever we can help everybody. You know, it's just not one family. It's not just my sister. Everybody. It happened to everybody. And the country.
Okay, Ranjit, thanks so much. We've got time for all of you. I know here this morning. And Sunita, you were watching the TV pictures of the Queen of the Sea, which was the train in the south of the country, which was devastated by the tsunami wave. And then you had bad news yourself.
Yes, my cousin's wife and the two children who are under 14 have lost their life. And they were perished in that train when they were traveling from Goa to Colombo. And then, unfortunately, they had this bad news, and also their business was all damaged in Matra town. And I have lost another relative who are elderly couple. They were by the coast in Matra town, and they lost their house as well as they perished in the got washed away in this massive disaster.
Okay, very sad. Thanks very much indeed for joining us this morning. We're going to be live here later on. As you can see, that everybody here has been affected by the tsunami in Sri Lanka, Andrew.
It's me, actually, Jonathan, but never mind. Well, joining us now is Sri Lanka's High Commissioner to Britain, Faiz Mustafa. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, we must first just briefly mention this breaking news this morning. We're hearing reports that a new tsunami warning has been issued to the whole of the area affected by the Boxing Day waves, and that people are now fleeing those areas. This is just the last thing people need, isn't it?
It's absolutely shattering, but at least on this occasion we have been forewarned.
Exactly, so maybe people can get away before it happens, if it happens again. What sort of stories are you hearing out of your country?
Oh, terrible, because I think this is probably the worst national disaster to befall us ever. The level of the devastation is just mind-boggling. We've just heard that the death toll is rising, has now reached about 22,000. Of course, bodies are being discovered. We have heard stories of mass graves. The destruction of property is also staggering, and the infrastructure has also taken a beating. All in all, it's absolutely shocking and appalling.
It's obviously going to take many, many years to recover from this. Is your country, did your country have plans in place to cope with such an emergency?
Well, having regard to this magnitude, I don't think we would have envisaged a tragedy of this nature. But certainly, of course, we had the Department of Social Services and a nuclear system which could cope with disasters on a minor scale. But this is absolutely staggering. I think everybody is taken aback.
Absolutely. Now, you're appealing to the Sri Lankan expats in this country for help. We've seen there that they are definitely pulling together already and raising lots of money. What sort of things are most important, do you think?
Of course, the response has been amazing, very encouraging. Of course, if you look at our requirements, they are twofold. There are, of course, the traditional humanitarian needs, which are of immediate nature. They cover the areas of health, that is sanitation, food, provision of temporary shelter, restoration of electricity, and of course the provision of drinking water. These are the priorities at the moment. Though, of course, in the long term we got to have, or rather even in the medium term, restoration of infrastructure, rebuilding. That of course will be an ongoing process. But we do need assistance in regard to the imperative needs, and that you could do either by supplying the material or by way of cash donations.
Absolutely, cash is the most important thing, isn't it? Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come into us this morning,
much.
and all the very best with your work in the weeks to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Just gone 10 to 7 this Thursday morning. You're watching the news here on GMTV. These are this morning's other headlines, and 60 police officers are hunting for the killer of pregnant teenager Amy Williams, who was found dead on Boxing Day in Shropshire.
Demand for home loans is at its lowest for almost 4 years, according to the British Bankers Association. The number of mortgages approved by its members fell by 20% last month.
And Olympic heroine Kelly Holmes looks set to top her 2 gold medals in Athens by becoming a dame in the New Year's honours list. That's expected to be announced tomorrow. OK, we're off to Hollywood now. We'll take a break from the heavier news and we'll talk to Nelson Aspen, which is always good fun. Nelson, good morning to you. A famous spat. Tell me more. I like this one.
Well, if you can imagine anything worse than having the Osbournes as neighbors, imagine if Simon Cowell moved in next door to them. Apparently, this is what's happening in Beverly Hills. We hear reports that Simon Cowell has plopped down £5 million for a swanky new house right by the Osbournes' house. And Sharon Osbourne, you know, apparently their feud is so intense that she's decided she's getting out of the hood. She's going to put up their house for sale and get out of there because, I mean, even at public events, they've had to be separated. So the last thing she wants is for him to come knocking on the door wanting to borrow a cup of sugar, although he keeps claiming, sweet as pie, that he really wants to work things out with Sharon.
OK, how lovely. Also, confirmation of what we've always suspected, superstars getting better treatment in jail, especially in America?
Oh, sure. Just ask Robert Downey Jr. Well, now there's a police chief in Arizona who's admitting he may have made some poor decisions, that's a quote, I might add, in how they handled the sentencing of Supreme's Diana Ross. You might remember almost a year ago, she was involved in that little drunk driving incident in Arizona, and she had to serve 2 whole days in prison. Well, we're finding out now that she got to go home for a little bit during the middle of the sentence. She got to have special food brought in, no file in the cake, and she got to use her cell phone. So that sounds to me better than some hotels I've been in.
Yeah, it does sound good. Nelson, thank you. There have been rumours, have there not, that Bridget Jones, Renée Zellweger, as we know her, has split from her boyfriend. What do you know?
Well, I'll either make you sad or happy to hear this, but it's not just a rumor anymore. Apparently this happened about 8 weeks ago. She and Jack White, her musician boyfriend, have called it quits. Nothing dramatic, just that terrible price of fame, you know, the distance. She's jetting from here to there and everywhere, and it just didn't work out anymore, so she's finished with him, she's finished with Jim Carrey, she's finished with George Clooney. Who's next? She's looking more and more like Lara Thin Boyle every day. She's this big, she's got black hair and the big lips.
I tell you one. Do you know what, Nelson? We've finished for you. We'll speak to you later on. Go and have a cup of coffee. See ya. Bye.
He's so descriptive, isn't he? It's GMTV Today next, right through until 9:25 this morning. Stay with us, of course, for more on the disaster relief effort for the countries affected by the Boxing Day tsunamis.
Next, the weather with Claire.
What's your name?
Brown, sir. Thomas Brown.
There were 2 fresh faces that day at rugby school. The new headmaster and young Tom Brown.
Have no fear, Tom.
Stephen Fry stars in a brand new adaptation of a timeless classic.
Learn from the strong. Protect the weak. Stand up to bullies and blackguards of every kind.
Tom Brown's School Days.
Then let the adventure begin.
New Year's Day at 9 on ITV1.
Jump into the new year with a bang. Out with the old and in with the new, as LK puts 3 of the new best-selling diet books to the test. And Dr. Hilary is on hand to cross-examine the creators. Plus, see how you can reevaluate your life and prioritise the things that are really important. LK Today next week on GMTV.
GMTV weather. Sponsored by Tops Tiles. Brightening homes, whatever the weather.
Hello, good morning. Wind and rain in the north gradually sinking its way southwards. Mild for the time being until Sunday, that's the 2nd of January, when we're expecting some very cold winds coming in from the north. The satellite picture's not picking up a lot of the low clouds. It's actually producing a little bit of patchy drizzle across north and western areas of Wales. But as we head northwards, as you can see, it's mostly dry across England and Wales, Ireland and southern and central Scotland. But there is rain on the way. It's coming in from the north there, some heavy bursts likely across the northern Scotland through this morning. That will move across the central and southern areas of Scotland, reaching Northern Ireland through the morning into the afternoon and then heading its way southward. To the south, it's a mostly dry start. We could see a little bit of sunshine from time to time. Very windy in the north, but as this rain moves across to more southern areas, the winds will ease across central and northern areas of Scotland. You should see some sunshine. It's going to cause some problems tonight. It'll be a chilly start to tomorrow morning. To the south, hanging on to some dry weather for a time. Overnight, though, I think we will see that rain gradually moving across to more central parts. Temperatures then on the mild side, 15 degrees Celsius today, not too bad at all, 9 in the north. And as I said, a chilly start to the day across more central and northern areas. Watch out for dense fog patches and also some icy stretches on untreated roads. We're hanging on to the rain across the far south, but that will clear off the scene during New Year's Eve. And that means for the evening itself, there shouldn't be any problems on the roads whatsoever. Some dampness across the far and northwest and in the south, mostly dry, as I said, turning colder on Sunday. Here's your summary. For your local 5-day weather forecast, visit our website, gm.tv.
5 million people in desperate need of food and shelter as the aid starts to arrive in the earthquake zone. It's approaching 7 o'clock on Thursday, the 30th of December.
Good morning to you. This is GMTV Today. Today is the 5th day of the Asian earthquake disaster.
Yes, 5 days on and more evidence of the devastating effects of the Asian tsunami. 1 in 4 people in the Indonesian province of Banda Aceh are thought to have been killed. That alone could be as many as 80,000 people, just in that one area alone. And in the past hour, the Indian government has issued a new tsunami warning along its southeast coast, which is causing panic in the area.
Well, in Britain, thousands of people have already pledged money to help. The Disasters Appeal phone line is 0870 60 60 900, 0870 60 60 900 if you want to get involved. Let's go first to Thailand, where many of the British victims died. Richard Gaisford is in Phuket, where the desperate search for missing friends and relatives goes on, but where some holidaymakers have returned to the beach. Good morning to you, Richard. I guess life must go on.
Life must go on, but not for the families and friends of the 6,000 people who are thought to be missing here in Thailand. That's the figure that's just been released by the Thai authorities. They reckon at least half of them are foreigners. Amongst them, this chap, Piers Simon, 33 years old, last seen on the island of Phi Phi, and his family haven't seen him since Boxing Day, and they're desperate for information. Now, his brother Luke joins me now. Luke, I know you've been searching very hard for your brother.
Yeah.
It's an intense emotional time for you, isn't it?
It's very hard. We've spent 18 hours a day working around the clock, not just in this country with a friend of mine, but also family and friends at home. We're doing all we can. We're exploring every single possible lead that could lead to any bit of information which will identify exactly where he is.
And it's a grim task for you and your friends.
It's horrid. You have such highs and lows, peaks and troughs really, because you'll get a lead which you think is going to, bring him back to you, and then you'll get another bit of information which actually destroys that. So you have to start again, keep positive, and sift through the information. Keep talking to people, because everyone is moving around and they're in similar situations, and see if you can get a new lead somewhere else.
Now, the last phone call you had wasn't good news, but we're still asking people to look at the pictures of Luke to see if they can build up some sort of idea of where he might have been and where he might be now.
Absolutely. The last phone call has identified someone in a morgue who is wearing a similar pair of shorts. We think we have a match there, but you know, we still have to remain positive. The type of shorts are quite common, and there are still a lot of people around who haven't been reported yet. So we're maintaining positive, but obviously this is a new lead and we have to explore every option within it.
Well, Luke, we wish you well with your search. And amongst all of this death and destruction and the missing people, believe it or not, people are still trying to get on with holidays. It might be hard to understand why, but you look at the beach behind me, there are people there who have been soaking up the sun and going into the sea. And yesterday I went to meet some of those British families. Very slowly they're coming back to the beach that just a few days ago they ran for their lives from. Amongst the visitors today, this British family, keen to help their 8-year-old daughter banish the thoughts and fears she's gained after watching the tidal wave sweep in.
There was big waves